In the early 1800s, Europe was a chessboard for Napoleon's ambitions. Great Britain stood defiant, its navy the undisputed master of the seas. Caught in the middle was Spain. Officially neutral, it was bound by a secret treaty to pay massive subsidies to France, an act Britain viewed as directly fueling Napoleon's war machine. This delicate and tense neutrality, however, was about to shatter in a single explosive moment that would reshape the continent's alliances. The breaking point arrived on October 5, 1804. Without a formal declaration of war, this underlying tension ignited off the coast of Portugal. A powerful British squadron, acting on secret orders, intercepted 4 Spanish frigates returning from South America. These ships were laden with silver, gold, and the personal fortunes of many colonial officials and their families. The British commander demanded the Spanish fleet divert to an English port for inspection. The Spanish commander, Don José de Bustamante y Guerra, proud and vastly outnumbered, refused to surrender his flag. What followed was a short and brutal confrontation. A British cannonball fired as a warning shot that went tragically astray struck the Spanish frigate Mercedes. The shot hit the ship's powder magazine, which detonated in a catastrophic explosion. The Mercedes was instantly obliterated, taking with it over 250 souls, including women and children who were returning home. The immense treasure was lost to the depths. This act of aggression, seen by Madrid as piracy on a national scale, caused immense outrage. King Charles IV of Spain had no choice but to declare war on Great Britain, formally aligning his nation with Napoleon's France. For 4 years, Spain fought as a committed ally of France. The combined Franco-Spanish fleet would meet its doom at Trafalgar, but the alliance on land held firm. Yet, Napoleon's ambition knew no bounds. In 1808, under the guise of reinforcing his armies to invade Britain's ally, Portugal, French troops marched into Spain. It was a Trojan horse. Napoleon swiftly overthrew the Spanish monarchy, deposing King Ferdinand VII and installing his own brother, Joseph, on the throne. The trusted ally had become a brutal invader. The Spanish people erupted in furious rebellion. From the bloody streets of Madrid during the 2 de Mayo uprising to the rugged countryside, a vicious guerrilla war began against the French occupiers, desperate for any assistance they could find. The Spanish juntas, the provincial governments leading the resistance, swallowed their pride. They turned to their most recent and bitter enemy for aid, Great Britain. In a stunning reversal of alliances, London saw a golden opportunity to open a new front against Napoleon. Thus began the Peninsular War, a conflict that would rage for 6 long years. British redcoats, led by commanders like the future Duke of Wellington, Arthur Wellesley, landed in Portugal and Spain. They fought alongside the very Spanish armies they had once battled at sea, joined by Portuguese forces in a coalition against the French. This unlikely alliance, forged in the fires of a shared enemy, would become what Napoleon himself later called his Spanish Ulcer, a bloody and draining conflict that would consume his empire's men and resources, contributing significantly to his ultimate downfall. The Spanish Ulcer. The Peninsular War, born from Napoleon's betrayal, had become a bloody stalemate. To the French, it was the Spanish Ulcer, a relentless drain on their empire, consuming men and resources with no end in sight. For the British, Spanish, and Portuguese, it was a desperate war for liberation, a brutal struggle fought across the sun-scorched mountains and vast plains of the Iberian Peninsula. Animated maps show the seemingly unstoppable tide of French blue washing over Spain, leaving only pockets of fierce resistance and a precarious British foothold in Portugal, a lone bastion against the might of Napoleon's war machine. Wellesley's defensive genius. At the heart of this resistance was the British commander, Arthur Wellesley, a man of cold calculation and strategic brilliance. He understood that he could not defeat the numerically superior French armies in a direct, head-on slugging match. Instead, he adopted a brilliant and patient defensive strategy. In 1810, anticipating a massive French invasion of Portugal, Wellesley ordered the secret construction of the lines of Torres Vedras. This was a colossal engineering feat. a multi-layered network of forts, redoubts, and earthworks that stretched across the Lisbon Peninsula, effectively turning it into an impregnable fortress. When the French army under Marshal Massena arrived, they found themselves facing an impassable barrier. Unable to penetrate the defenses and with their supply lines stretched to the breaking point, they were forced into a humiliating and starving retreat. Wellesley, studying his maps in a dimly lit tent, had outmaneuvered the masters of continental warfare, the Little War. While Wellesley's conventional army held the fortified line, the Spanish people themselves waged a different, more insidious kind of war. It was the Guerrilla, the Little War, a term that would enter languages across the world. In every corner of occupied Spain, bands of partisans from peasants to priests rose up against the invaders. They launched lightning-fast ambushes on French patrols from the cover of rocky hillsides, intercepted vital dispatches, and disrupted the crucial supply lines that kept the French armies fed and armed. A French supply convoy is seen burning against the twilight sky, a testament to their effectiveness. These guerrilla fighters executed collaborators and instilled a constant state of fear among the occupiers. Their relentless activity tied down hundreds of thousands of French troops, preventing them from ever concentrating their full force against Wellesley's Anglo-Portuguese army. The turning of the tide. The decisive turning point came in the fateful year of 1812, as Napoleon, in his hubris, launched his disastrous invasion of Russia. He was forced to siphon off his best troops and most experienced commanders from Spain to feed the Grande Armée. On one side of a split screen, we see the endless columns of Napoleon's army marching into the unforgiving Russian snow. On the other, Wellesley seizes the golden opportunity. With the French forces in Spain weakened and overstretched, he went on the offensive. At the Battle of Salamanca, Wellesley caught a French army on the march and shattered it in a tactical masterpiece. He watched intently before ordering a decisive cavalry charge that ripped through the French lines, forcing them into a long and chaotic retreat back towards Madrid. The aura of French invincibility in Spain was broken forever. Victory and invasion. The momentum was now unstoppable. Over the next year, Wellesley, now Marquis of Wellington, skillfully maneuvered his allied British, Spanish, and Portuguese forces, driving the French out of one city after another. The campaign culminated in the final, crushing victory at the Battle of Vittoria in 1813. The French army, burdened with years of accumulated plunder, was caught and annihilated, its defeat so total that the Allies captured vast amounts of treasure and weaponry. The war for Spain was effectively won. An animated map shows the French being relentlessly pushed back, their territory shrinking until they were cornered against the Pyrenees. Wellington's triumphant Allied army then pursued the shattered French forces across the mountains, invading France itself and taking the war to Napoleon's own soil for the first time. Conclusion: the beginning of the end. The war in the peninsula was over. This long and brutal conflict, which had cost hundreds of thousands of lives, not only liberated Spain and Portugal, but also proved to be a critical factor in Napoleon's downfall. It had bled his empire dry and demonstrated that his armies were not invincible. A triumphant shot shows Wellington on horseback, watching his victorious troops march into southern France. The alliance of enemies, forged in the crisis of French domination and sustained by British resilience and Spanish ferocity, had achieved the unthinkable. The Spanish Ulcer had metastasized, contributing directly to the emperor's first abdication in 1814. A final, somber portrait shows Napoleon, defeated and weary, signing the papers that would send him into his first exile. The beginning of his end had started in the mountains of Spain.